Okay, we're good to go?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome everybody to our Advocacy and Program Planning Workshop. For those of you who don't know me, I think I know everybody pretty much. I'm Gretchen Newby, President of the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County. At the request of the State League, we are at the local level discussing issues for program planning at both the state and local levels. Because this is closely tied to our advocacy work, Kate White will explain the League way of advocacy, followed by Jane Wagner-Tyak, who will lead a discussion on program planning at the state level. We will have a short break between the two presentations. Please keep your microphones muted and hold your questions until the end of each presentation. The workshop is being recorded and will be posted on the League of Women Voters San Joaquin County YouTube channel. I'd like to thank the Advocacy Committee for their good work. Jerry Bigby is the chair of that committee, with Kate White, Margot Prowse, Susan Mora-Loico, and Mary Kennefic. They were joined in the work by the Program Planning Committee, Jane Wagner-Tyak and Joelle Ann Boyer. Thank you for joining us this morning. We couldn't do it without the participation of the members, and so welcome. And now Kate.
Okay, yes, I'm Kate White, and I've been a League member for about 15 years. I've been on the board for most of that time, about 10 years. And I'm off the board now, but I'm on the Advocacy Committee. And I'm still only seeing Gretchen. Well, that's okay. So.
Kate, I'm not seeing you.
I know, I'm not seeing me. Let's see, maybe I did something. Yeah, okay. Now can you see me? There, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about how the League advocacy system works. Advocacy is a word we often use, but the League has their own way of doing it. The League consists of two separate but distinct parts: voter service and advocacy. And they make every effort to keep those things separate. So advocacy is a separate function from voter service. And while we might think of advocacy as the act of arguing in favor of something such as a cause or an idea or a favor, the League has its own unique definition, which describes it this way. The League of Women Voters takes action on an issue only when we have a position addressing that particular issue. Members must study and come to consensus on an issue in order to form a position. This thorough grassroots process ensures that our advocacy is well considered by a broad range of people, understood by our members, and we have a sense of the political environment. So this comes from the National League website. This is how they define advocacy. So what exactly do they mean by this? So first, we need to keep in mind that the League has different levels. There's the National League, the State League, and then our local league. Some local leagues join together in what are called ILOs, or interleague organizations, and there are several of those in our state. The one closest to us is in the Bay Area. Several leagues there have joined together to form an ILO. So each level of the League is responsible for advocacy within its own geographic jurisdiction. So the national organization controls advocacy on national issues. State leagues do the same for state issues, and local leagues act on issues that are locally affecting them and local issues. Leagues generally do not act on issues outside of their immediate jurisdiction unless prompted by a higher level. For instance, as a local league, we would not lobby on a bill in the state legislature unless we were asked to do so by our state league. Each level of the League chooses subjects for education and advocacy, which is also known as program. This means that the League wants to educate its members with the general public about their chosen issues, with the idea that they will likely be involved in advocacy on various aspects of those issues. The League urges its various levels to align their programs as much as possible, so national, state, and local leagues try to align as much as they can. These concerns should be considered when choosing subjects for program planning and for program. A key advocacy concept is that the league speaks with one voice, meaning that once the league has established an advocacy position at any level, other leagues must either support it or remain silent, but they cannot take opposing positions. So this is a really important concept within the league, that we speak with one voice. So all members are free to act as individuals on any issue, but unless they are formally prompted to act on a national, state, or local issue, they should refrain from referring to the league when they act. So unless it's an official league action, you can take action on your own, but don't mention the league. As mentioned before, all league advocacy is based on league positions. There are national, state, and local positions which provide the reasoning for advocacy actions. This provides consistency and helps to ensure that the league speaks with one voice. So positions cover three basic areas: government, natural resources, and social policy. These positions are adopted through a formal study process, including all leagues that wish to participate. Study materials are developed by those initiating the study and read and discussed by the study participants. The participants then agree through a consensus process on the answers to a series of questions or statements included in the study materials. These answers are collected and tabulated and then used to develop a position. And this is usually a 2-year process. Our local league has participated in 3 national studies since 2000, an immigration study, an agriculture study, and a water privatization, or it was not water specifically, it was a privatization study. We also did a local study on transportation issues in San Joaquin County in the early 2000s. Positions can also be developed through a consensus with another position that's already been adopted at a state league level. So if the national convention, at a national convention, if the members agree that they want to adopt that position, they can vote to adopt that. All positions are ratified at national or state conventions. And our local positions we would adopt at our annual meetings. The positions can be found on various league websites. So on the national LWVUS website, you should look for impact on issues. On the LWVC or California website, search for positions under our work. And some national positions are also listed with the state positions. On our own website, you will find our positions under issues. So these are the things that form the basis of advocacy. When selecting an issue for advocacy, it is important to be familiar with the league's positions so that you can refer to all the pertinent ones. The positions form the basis for advocacy. Without a position, we cannot advocate. So the positions are a really important piece of our advocacy work. If a local league wishes to take an action on a national issue that is not listed as a priority or part of the program of the LWVUS, they must consult with the LWVUS, and there's a federal action request form available on their website. If a local league wants to take action on a bill before our state legislature, they should refer to the bill status report on the LWVC website. Each year, the state league follows a number of bills in the state legislature, adopting a support or opposed position. Local leagues may take action on these bills, but the action should be limited to contacting state legislators representing the local area, and the local league should contact LWVC before taking action. So this is the part of speaking with one voice. When a league acts within a local community, interpreting league positions is the responsibility of the local board wishing to use the positions. So impact on issues establishes some guidelines in this regard, and they state that the following considerations should be made when contemplating action on a community issue. So there's a whole list of these. Does the league have a position that supports the proposed action? Is the board understanding and in agreement? Is it a priority for the league? Does the league have a unique role to play or a chance to take the league? Is this the best use of the league resources? Are any other organizations or a coalition already working on this issue? Is this the right timing? And what kind of community involvement would best support the league's efforts? The league also asks the board to use the DEI lens, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, when they're looking at issues to support or oppose. And you ask the following questions. Who is involved in this process? Who will be impacted? What are the intended and unintended outcomes? Does this align with our vision for equitable and inclusive organization? What changes could be made to make this more equitable? So these are all considerations that the board should take into account, and the advocacy committee can help with this evaluation and then bring their recommendations to the board. If the local league wishes to take action on a state or national issue that is not listed as a priority, they must seek approval from the appropriate level of league. So once you pick issues for advocacy, what sorts of methods can you use to advocate as a league member? So a number of things can be done, and we've done many of these with our local league. We can hold forums on the issues open to the public, open those forums to the public. And as advocacy actions, these forums can present a point of view. We do not need to represent both sides, as we sometimes do if we're just strictly looking at education. Letters or position statements that will be signed by the league president in support or opposition to a proposed action can be submitted in the league's name to the appropriate governing body. Letters signed by the league president can also be submitted to local publications, or the league may request an opportunity to write an op-ed. We have put up ads in the past in the Record and also in the Lodi Sentinel about certain issues. Letters or position statements can be posted on the league's website and on our Facebook page. And members of the league may be selected to speak at governmental agency meetings, such as the Board of Supervisors, a school board meeting, a city council meeting, to represent the league's point of view. The league may form coalitions with other groups with the same point of view in order to work on a specific issue. And generally, when we do join in coalition with other groups, it's in relation to a specific issue. We aren't taking on their whole advocacy slate, and they're not taking on ours. We're just joining together on a specific issue. It may be necessary to get state approval before taking that step. The league draws a distinction between advocacy and lobbying. Advocacy activities such as developing policy briefs, analyzing issues, providing specific recommendations for reforms, and conducting forums for discussing issues and education policies can be considered educational. Educating policymakers, that's all educational. Lobbying is defined as an attempt to influence specific legislation that has been introduced or proposed, either by contacting elected officials or by urging the public to contact their elected officials about that specific piece of legislation. So this is if there's a specific action proposed. It could be locally, it could be at the state level. An additional function of advocacy is monitoring and observing. So once we've supported an action and that's been adopted, the best policy would be for us to monitor how that action is then implemented. And we could have official observers. Now, we haven't always been the best at doing this because it requires manpower and volunteer power, and we haven't always had that available. But this is something to keep in mind, that monitoring and observing is ideally part of our advocacy work. So how has our league advocated in the past? One of the actions we took was in relation to Measure K. Measure K is a half-cent countywide sales tax that funds road and transportation infrastructure in the county and is administered by the San Joaquin County Council of Governments, known as SJCOG. So knowing that Measure K would be up for renewal in 2006, we undertook a study, a local study on transportation in our area before that, so that we could develop a local position on transportation. And our position then after our study emphasized that land use and regional cooperation should be part of transportation plans. And we also thought that alternatives to single occupancy vehicles, such as public transportation and bicycles and walking, should be part of any county transportation proposal. So as the COG developed the Measure K plans, we sent letters stating our position along with other groups, namely the Sierra Club. And the SJCOG incorporated many of those concerns into their plan. So when the Measure K renewal proposition appeared on the ballot in 2006, we were able to endorse its passage. And we sent support letters to the COG and also to the Stockton Record. And now we have a member of our league, Lauren Atai, who sits on the COG Citizens Review Committee and reports back to our board. And that that seat on that committee goes back to our support for Measure K in 2006. Another action we took had to do with water privatization in Stockton. So in 2003, the Stockton City Council proposed privatizing the operation of the city wastewater system. We had adopted a position back in 1974 that favored a publicly owned and operated water system for the city of Stockton. So we used that position to advocate against the privatization move. And then we joined with other groups and we placed a local initiative on the ballot prohibiting the outsourcing of wastewater treatment without public approval. However, the city went ahead and before that vote could take place, they went ahead and outsourced the water system to a company called Omi Themes. So the league at that point, partnering with the Sierra Club and the concerned citizens of Stockton, filed a lawsuit claiming that in their haste, the city had not done a full environmental impact study as required by CEQA. So actions like these are supported by league positions calling for public participation, transparency, and environmental protection. The court eventually decided in our favor, and the city was forced to abandon the water system privatization plan. After this, our league worked with the state league to develop something called the Water Privatization Checklist, which now appears with the state league positions. Then in 2010, the US League undertook a study on privatization, which we participated in, and a national position on privatization was adopted at the US League convention in 2012. So our league has also used local positions on agricultural land and land use planning to comment on the San Joaquin County General Plan and the Stockton General Plan. So these are ways that we've advocated using our positions in the last 10 or 15 years. I hope that this advocacy overview has helped to clarify the way that the league approaches advocacy. Our league is very lucky to have an advocacy committee headed by Jerry Bigby, and it includes myself, Susan Loico, Margot Prowse, and Mary Kennefic. We welcome new members to our committee, as well as any comments, suggestions, or questions you may have. At this point, I'd like to thank Jerry and Susan for their help with this presentation, as well as Diane Park and Jane Wagner-Tyke. They've all given me good information and technical support. And most of this information has come from the state and national websites. These are really important resources, and I encourage everybody to check on those websites periodically, because they change, the information on there changes, but there's always good information that's pertinent to what we might want to know as league members on those websites. So I encourage you to check them off. And at this point, if anybody has questions, I'm willing to take questions. Let's see, you can, are people raising hands yeah, so you can go to the box where you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question.
Or you can just wave at us.
Or you could wave, yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like everybody's frozen. But so the difference between advocacy and lobbying. So we don't really ever mention that we're lobbying when we're actually doing it. We usually only talk about advocating. So
yeah, we don't use,
is there a prohibition?
I don't think so, B. I think we just haven't used that word, but sometimes what we have done would be classified as lobbying. But I think it's okay if we just say we're advocating. It's just important to know what the difference is, I think.
Because lobbying has it can have a more negative connotation too.
If I could,
that's true.
If I could speak to that as the director of a nonprofit 501c3, which is the same classification as league, and the status of a 501c3 prohibits spending any funds on lobbying, and you can lose your 501c3 status if you lobby. Providing information is not lobbying, but there are those specifics that you spelled out really, really well in the PowerPoint that I think are important and need to be paid attention to. The interpretation of are there any funds being spent on the lobbying could be interpreted very broadly. So it doesn't necessarily mean paying a lobbyist or paying someone to do lobbying. It can be using funds that have been donated to the organization in any way to support a lobbying effort. So if a group of people, for instance, were to go to the Lodi City Council and were participating in a lobbying event, and they were to be reimbursed for their time or for their travel, that would be a violation of the lobbying clause for 501c3s.
Yeah, and the league is basically a volunteer organization, so generally we don't pay people to do things like that. Yeah,
right. But you don't want to have the question even raised, and
right.
Yeah, it's but that still leaves the field very, very wide. It still means that you can certainly attend meetings of government policymaking bodies. You can certainly introduce ourselves as the league to elected officials without discussing any specific issues. There are lots and lots of things that you can still do by way of information, as long as you're real clear that's what you're doing.
Right.
You're going to be okay.
Well, I have another comment or question. So the DEI emphasis, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that would also really have an impact, for instance, on commissions or committees, you know, forums and things like that, that a governmental entity is putting together, right? So that when they form a commission to study something or to look at something, or a task force, the league should be looking closely to see if those bodies are inclusive and diverse and all of that. And so you know, that would be a task, I think, for our league to look at locally.
That is an interesting way to look at it. I mean, what I was talking about is internally, we should be asking ourselves those questions, but I think the league would like us to be thinking about those things as in a global way rather than just by pertaining to ourselves. But yeah, that's interesting. So those are listed on the national website, and that section comes out of the impact on issues. So the impact on issues has all the positions on the national level, but there's also some explanation before they start with the issues about how the whole process should work. So that's where you could find that list if you were looking for it.
Okay, I think we're ready for a break at this point.
Okay.
We'll go into the next presentation.
Well, we are almost, thank you. I'm going to put up something for us to look at. Well, we have our break, and then we'll move into a discussion of program planning. As Kate said, the league has reached consensus and adopted positions in 3 categories. Oh, I see a kitty. In 3 categories: government, natural resources, and social policy. And so while we take our break, I want you to be able to look at the list of those issues. And then after the break, we'll discuss how we could influence league activities regarding these issues. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. We'll see if I can make this happen right. Wait, I think I did this backwards. Maybe not. Okay, hold on just a minute. I thought I had this straightened out, and it looks like I undid myself. Hold on, hold on. All right. Can you all see this? It says all issues.
Yeah.
All right, this is what we wanted. So these are in the 3 categories. These are the issues on which the league has developed positions. And so go ahead and take a break for about 5 minutes and then glance at this so you know what's here. And when we come back, we'll talk about how this applies to program planning.
So Jane, this comes from the state website? Yeah.
This comes from the state website, and I can let you know offline how to find it if you aren't sure how to do that.
So are there national issues that would be in addition to this, or do you think this is inclusive?
Well, these are issues about which the league has reached consensus, and it says most nationwide. Some are specific to our state.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, I think this includes national policy.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Okay, so we'll start again about 10:37.
All right.
10:37.
So there's there's a microphone on here too. So when you talk, it right into that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think that was internal.
Oh.
Jane?
Yes.
Question. So this list is from the national organizations?
It's on the State League website.
But is it the national priorities?
Well, we're not going to talk about the national priorities today. This list applies to all issues, and these are, some are nationwide and some are specific to our state. So this is from the State League website, and it includes nationwide
right.
positions. Now, as far as key issues, which we're going to talk about in a minute, we're not going to talk about the national key issues today. We're just going to talk about the state key issues because that's what they want our input on for the coming biennium.
So do we have a separate list of just the state issues?
No.
It really doesn't matter. We can use any of these.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Did you talk about vertical position?
You know, I left that out, but vertical issues are issues that are parallel, the same basic wording for state and national issues. Okay. On their positions. So some positions are vertical, which means that the same wording is used both nationally and state by the state.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So you might see this DC self-government and full voting on here. That's a national issue. That's something that's being discussed now, is that the National League has supported statehood for Washington, DC.
Right, whereas here's Prop 15, the Schools and Communities First effort.
Which would be a state issue, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm noticing too, for example, water resources, the thing I'm most familiar with. If you were to go on the State League website to the issues section in the natural resources and click on California water resources, you could also access the national position.
Right.
Which is a bit different than the state.
So if you're on the website and you click on any of these, it'll take you to those positions, that position in particular.
Right.
I'm going to move mine so that it's not.
I was going to stop screen sharing this, but I'm not going to do that because I get messed up every time I film.
Yeah, there's no point really.
I'm just going to leave this on until I finish the.
Right. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Uh-huh.
And Jerry, we're going to go through another little awkwardness here when I move from the poll to the fill in the blank form. Just want to warn you. It's too many things on my screen at once. So should we get started again?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about program planning. And as a reminder to some of you, the National League of Women Voters holds conventions every 2 years in even numbered years. They had one in 2020. And states hold conventions in odd numbered years. And this coming June, 2021, LWV California will hold a convention, almost certainly virtual. And one of the matters that delegates will consider is key issues for 2021 to 2023. So for the 2-year period between conventions. So let's take a look at the key issues that delegates adopted in 2019. So that was when we had the last state league convention, was in 2019, and delegates adopted in 2019 these key issues. And everything that is in red, if you were on the State League website, you could actually click on it and get more information. But there's redistricting, money in politics, voting rights, schools and communities first initiative, of course, climate change, housing and homelessness, and criminal justice reform. Note down here, it says what Kate said, that program is issues we choose for concerted study, education, and action at all levels, and can include both education and action. So here's what we want to do now. Every 2 years, the California Leagues engage in program planning for the State League, and they make recommendations to the State League Board of Directors, which are then considered at the convention. And delegates vote to adopt key issues based on input from leagues around the state. Now, an important implication of this process is that it impacts the league's legislative priorities. So kind of get this in your memory here, these key issues, and take a look at the legislative priorities for actually the 2 years beginning in 2019. So a legislative session in California is 2 years. The last one was 2019, 2020. We're entering another one now, 2021, 2022. So our the league biennium kind of lines up with that. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but anyway, it works that way. And so here we are making democracy work. These were legislative priorities for the last 2 years: climate change, housing and homelessness, and then other issues as time permits. And the legislative committee, the state legislative committee, legislation committee can consider other legislation if that's recommended by local leagues or program directors. But there's a limitation on their ability to do that, and it's a staffing issue. Note down here, these issues for education and advocacy set every 2 years. They inform our legislative policy, but the issues for education and advocacy are broader, and they can include things like community education and member education and advocacy that's broader than the legislature. Mm-hmm. So the State League is not as involved in community education and member education as they are in legislative advocacy, and that's largely because of the size of the staff. And even advocacy, of the legislative advocacy, is largely the work of volunteers. For example, I'm the co-director for water for the State League, and I'm also the legislative analyst for water. Last week, the State League advocacy team had a meet and greet with program directors and legislative analysts. There were about 50 people participating and only 2 were paid staff. So they don't have a lot of staff resources to do this kind of thing. That's one of the reasons that they put some limitations. So the legislation committees are pretty selective about what bills they agree to support or oppose, but I can tell you the criteria that they consider. First of all, is there an equity angle? And again, remember, the league at every level is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if a piece of legislation has an equity angle, it provides an edge for having the legislation committee be willing to consider putting energy into supporting or opposing it. Will the league voice help is another criterion. We all have lots of issues that we care about, but some of those are peripheral to the state league efforts, either in the short run or just kind of as a regular thing. So there are a lot of areas in which a league voice will not have any particular impact. But some issues warrant opposition. They very much go against league principles, and so the league would take a position there. And also, is a bill important to a relationship with a legislator, a relationship with policymakers, or with other organizations with which we collaborate in a variety of fields. Okay, so let's look at these key issues again from the last biennium, the ones that were adopted in 2019. And there was legislative activity around these. And again, if you want more information about that, we can direct you to the State League website, and you can find out what kinds of legislation was supported and opposed and what the results of that were. Or you can just get in touch with me. Okay, so now what we'd like to do is identify 3 key issues for us to recommend to the State League for the upcoming 2 years. And these may or may not reflect what we want to focus on locally. I'll get back to that in a minute. First, we're going to talk about what we want to recommend to the State League, and then later on and at another meeting, we're going to talk about what we want to focus on locally. So these, again, are just our recommendations to the League of Women Voters of California. And because of Zoom polling constraints, we had to limit this to 10 issues that we're going to ask you to choose among. And I wish I could show these all at once, but I can't. I'm going to have to scroll. So we chose some in for each of the categories, government, natural resources, and social policy. And we've got at the end something that says other, in case there's a consensus in this group for adding an additional issue. So these are the ones that we're suggesting, we're recommending you to choose among, and you'll be able to choose 3. Climate change, housing and homelessness, redistricting in California, criminal justice reform, child and family issues action policy, education, money and politics, immigration, California water resources, and then there's another if if we've left something off that you all think is really important. So
okay. These are not showing on my screen. Are they showing on the screen generally?
Help, Jerry.
Yeah, did you launch the poll?
No.
It'd be nice to have those up there.
Eric, can you see it now?
No.
Yes, I see it.
Got it? Good.
I don't have
that. I have a question on redistricting in California, because I thought that we have a bipartisan commission that does that. It's sort of taken out of the hands of politicians. And so I'm wondering why that might still be an issue.
There's 2 reasons for that. One is that they want us to, they'll be drawing new lines once the census is completed. So they kind of wanted us to monitor that. This is a monitoring action. but also I think there's additional redistricting that they're looking at the very local level, like within city council and the school board elections, how those are there large candidates? Are they moving to district representation, and how are those districts drawn?
Okay, thank you.
Who besides Kate can't see this?
I can see it now.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, it took a while, but I.
Good. And I'm assuming that when we're ready to vote, there's a box that people can check. That's not something I can do. Oh.
Yeah, I don't see the whole thing though.
People are voting.
I can't. The whole thing is not up there.
You scroll down.
You have to scroll down.
Right. And then when you decide on your 3, hit submit.
Yeah. Mine is not scrolling.
There's,
oh yeah, now. Okay, it is.
Yeah, there's a.
It's very bulky. It doesn't want to scroll.
Anybody have any other questions about these?
Or are there issues that are not there that you'd like to advocate that we include in the other category?
Well, and these are issues that we're asking the state to focus on, right?
Yes.
Yes.
This is what leagues all over the state are doing right now, is making this kind of choice, although they may not be doing it quite the way we're doing it. I'm sorry.
And the state would like, as much as possible, for us to align our local issues with state and national priorities. So we don't have to do it for everything, but we might want to think about that a little bit. How many are we voting for? 3? Yeah.
Right. It looks like people have voted.
Yeah, I'm really having trouble getting this screen to work, but it's probably just me.
We have 17 participants, but unfortunately it probably won't let some of, yeah, no, we should be able to get 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I won't
be able to vote, but everybody else should be able to vote.
I can only vote for 2. That won't let me vote for any more.
You'll be a tiebreaker.
Yeah. Okay.
Jane, I can't vote either as co-host, so look for 15.
So we have 15 votes showing here. We'll know everyone voted. Someone is still thinking about this. 2 people are still thinking.
That's us, you and me, Jane.
No, because we have 17 people on the call.
No, I can't do it.
Right, but you and I can't vote.
Right, you and I can't vote, so that leaves 15 people who can. And
okay.
Does anybody need more time?
Well, I'm showing that 14 people have voted, and 1 person has not committed yet.
Okay.
Wait, this is just Susan and Bill should have 2 votes, I think, because they're both.
I know they should, but don't know how to do it. Well, I don't know if Colleen is on with Donna.
So I voted for 4 now. I don't.
You're such a rebel.
I can't undo this. But oh well. I voted for 4.
I don't know. Well,
I voted for all of them. I should let me close this and well, I don't know. This is not working for me. Thank you.
All right. So Jerry, Kate, should I wait for
So why can't Bill be counted as well?
Because you only have 1 screen to vote on.
Mm-hmm. Unless you had another computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone still need to vote?
Well, 14 and 15 people have voted. So
Right.
one person that I'm looking at, and that doesn't include Bill, unfortunately. Bill and Susan are coming through as a unit.
Maybe someone didn't hit submit.
Maybe somebody didn't hit submit.
Yeah.
This is Judith. Did you get mine?
I have no idea. This is anonymous.
Okay.
Said that. This is anonymous. Okay, well, tell me what to do, team. Should we stop with 14 votes?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I have a suggestion
Yes.
to ensure that both Susan and Bill's votes get counted. Is it possible for whichever one hasn't voted to email you with their choices now, and then you can add those to the count? And also Kate's having difficulty, so Kate could do the same thing.
It's easier to do it in chat.
In chat, then it's public, isn't it?
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, that might not be.
So any of you who have two people on one screen, or had a problem with your screen, if you simply in chat put the 3 things for which you are voting, or the other, what your suggestion is, and then send it to Jane, who's controlling the poll.
Well, and Jerry's actually monitoring the chat.
If I can't,
I'll see the chat.
I cannot bring it up. I think my screen is being difficult. There, okay. I want to chat. Oh, jeez.
Okay. And Jerry, I'm writing this down because I always worry about losing information. But will this be saved?
Yes, but we'll write it down also just in case.
Okay. Okay.
Can you display the results, Jane?
I don't know. Maybe when I end the poll. Has somebody written all this down yet? No, you can't. I have
Can't see it.
Yeah.
No one can see it but you right now.
I don't like having all this. Just a second. Okay. Well, I can tell you, that'll be interesting, and then I'll end the poll and we'll see if you can see it.
Right. Donna Brown, this is, I sent hers in and I have that confidentially.
Okay.
I have Susan's as well.
Okay, and now I'm seeing that attendees now viewing is 14, so that lines up with who's voted. This is going to change the It's a good thing that we only have 10, or things would really be tricky. I see another thing that's going to happen here. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Now can you all see it?
No, not yet. There.
Now I can, yes.
All right, so here we are. So I don't even have to tell you. Housing and homelessness got the largest percentage of votes. Climate change came in second. And then we have a tie for third between immigration and California water resources. So Jerry?
Yes, I have some more votes that have come in. If you'd like to add these, we have 2 more votes for redistricting, 2 more votes for
2 more for redistricting.
Okay.
2 more. Wait, 2 more votes for redistricting, 2 more for immigration.
Yes, and 1 more for money and politics, and 1 more for homelessness.
Ooh.
Okay, so that would give us 7 for climate change, 12 for housing and homelessness, 5 for redistricting, 3 for criminal justice reform, 2 for children and family issues, 2 for education, 5 for money and politics, and 7 for immigration, and 5 for water. Does that sound right? So housing and homelessness for sure. Immigration. And climate change.
Yep.
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 Okay, housing and homelessness, immigration, and climate change. All right, well, everyone sees how we did that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing that. And so these are the recommendations that we will take to the San Joaquin County Board for them to approve. And then if the board approves them, we will forward them to the State League. So, okay, so one more thing we need to talk about here. And that is that on February 20th, we're going to meet again to discuss key local issues and our own program for 2021 to 2022. And we'll vote on that at our annual meeting. Julianne Boyer is going to facilitate the meeting on February 20th. This afternoon, we're going to send you a notice about the February 20th meeting and also a form, and that'll where you can register, and also a form you can use to propose educational meetings for the coming year. And they may or may not involve advocacy. But we'll also send you a list of all the issues that we looked at earlier. So I'm going to try now. I'm going to show you a form if I can. Let's see if this works here. Okay, can you all see something that says educational meeting proposal form?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so this is the form we're going to send to you. And this is a form that you can use to suggest educational meetings for 2021 to 2022 for the state, for the local league. So you'll want to tell us the topic for the meeting. It's an informational, educational meeting. Issue areas, league issue areas it covers, and you can use the long list. Again, this doesn't have to be something that we've decided we're recommending to the state league. It can be any league issue on which, or any issue on which we have a position. And in fact, if you think of something you're interested in and it doesn't exactly line up with anything on the list of full list of issues, send it in anyway, because what we found, certainly with looking at legislation and other kinds of policy issues, is that a lot of the league positions lend themselves to doing just about anything you want to do. Somewhere in the position, there'll be something that will apply. Okay, why should LWVSJC educate itself about this matter? Might the topic lead to advocacy, and if yes, in what way? What authority or authorities can inform us about this topic? Are you proposing a single speaker or a presentation by several speakers, a forum, for example? You can leave that blank if you don't know. Who are possible co-hosts for the meeting that you're suggesting? Who do you expect to reach? And finally, and most important, what league member is willing to organize an educational meeting on this topic? So when you submit your suggestion, you also need to tell us what league member would be willing to work on that.
And Jane, by co-hosts, you mean other organizations that collaborate?
That's right. Other organizations, right.
So Jane, are you asking us to choose a single issue?
No, you mean make a single proposal?
Right.
No, you can do more than one. You can, when I send the form out, it should give you the option of submitting more than one proposal. And that would be great. And if for some reason that doesn't work, then get in touch with me and we'll fix it. Walt White has set this up. I don't know how he did it. It's magic. and he seems to be able to make everything work. So we're counting on that. Any other questions about this proposal form?
And this is on the website?
No, we're going to send this to you. later on in a few hours. This will come to you in your from the League Gmail.
I must say that in these challenging times, I do miss our little sticky dots.
I know the sticky dots were fun, but this does, you know, something like this, for example, gives us an opportunity to, you know, find people who can actually work on something, which our sticky dot process didn't always lend itself to.
I wanted to say why it's not going to be on our website, because it's not, only League members can participate in this process. This is an internal League process, so only the people that are officially League members can vote on these things and propose these things.
Right. You can assume virtual meetings for the coming year. We have a growing number of people who can help you with those meetings, so you don't have to be responsible for the technical aspects of anything you propose. So when you receive a notice about, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. When you receive a notice about the February 20th meeting, it will include a link to register, and we want you to register by February 17th. And if you're submitting an education meeting proposal, we'd like that by February 15th, because we want to allow time for all the attendees to review the proposals. Jane, so, anybody have any questions?
Jane, I have a question for you. Yes. Are you planning on just one virtual education meeting per month? Or if you got 15 or 16, you could do more than one a month if you had folks who were willing to be the leaders?
We haven't gotten there yet. I would say that if we have lots of good ideas, we can figure out how to fit them all in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, that would be exciting. Kathy, anybody else have a question? Okay.
Jane, I have one more question, sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
These are League meetings open to the public or just to League membership?
Well, you can specify that when you fill out the form, who's the intended audience. And in some cases, probably local League members would be the primary audience, but in other cases, we might want to reach the broader community. And that's one of the things that I think we should talk about on the 20th when we look at the different proposals.
So would it be correct to say that these need to be in before the next board meeting so that the board can take a look and make a determination? Is that where we're going?
I would expect that that on February 20th, we would arrive at some preliminary decisions that we would then take to the board. But when is the next board meeting? It's not before the 20th.
It is.
It is. It's on the 15th.
Oh, okay. Well, do you?
Yeah. These are things that the members are supposed to recommend to the board, so that the process wouldn't be complete until after the 20th.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the board would have, then the board has input, and then the whole thing goes to the annual meeting to be voted on.
Right. Okay. Oh, good. Thank you. All right. So there are two things going on here. Thank you, Kate. There are two things going on here. And honestly, Jerry and Julian and Kate and I have not figured out how this is going to work yet. We need to come up with some issues for education and advocacy for our league to vote on at our annual meeting. And my assumption is that when we look at the proposals that people are making, we'll have a good idea of where your interests lie. And that will help us determine what we want to focus on as issues for education and advocacy. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to have educational meetings on other subjects also. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a poll like we did today, and the issues that get the highest percentage of votes would be the ones that we would recommend to the board as issues for education and advocacy for the coming year. But we will also then have a supply of potential educational meeting proposals that we can draw from more broadly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then just to clarify the process. So the first process is that we collect these proposals. And then the second part is that it go before the meeting on the 20th.
Yes.
And then it goes before the board.
Yes.
And then it goes to the annual meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
One of my concerns
is for the issues for education advocacy. And then, but then my assumption is, my hope is that we're going to have also a reservoir of ideas from which we can draw, not just on the 3 that we select as issues for education and advocacy, but possibly for other kinds of meetings also.
So there's it's a multifaceted process to get to the point where it's actually scheduled and it's going to be produced. It's
right.
Not that because someone volunteers to do it, that would be calendared and it would move forward based on what's being submitted. These are offers rather than.
That's right. And actually how we schedule all that is another process.
Exactly. So, so it would be possible, for instance, to get 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 people submitting on the same topic. So through that process, that step by step, there would be a determination of how that particular topic was going to be presented.
Yes.
And by whom?
Yes.
I do want to say that once these proposals are presented and voted on at the 20th meeting, they can go to the board, but the board can't really change what the members have decided, I don't think. They can't, they couldn't, they might be able to add something. I don't think they could subtract anything.
So, so yeah, that's something that is important, because the understanding that I have is that the board can determine certain parameters of a presentation and based on what's being proposed.
What do you mean by parameters?
Well, for instance, if there are, for instance, 2 or 3 proposals for the same topic, that the board may not, I don't know if determine is the right word, may make suggestions as to which one they prefer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
This is Colleen. It's I'm, you know, it says Donna here. I think the that the yeah, that the membership recommends to the board is right. I think how that goes, yes. And therefore it is up to the board to bring recommendations to the annual meeting. And if the members disagree with the board, or they say the board, maybe there's 5 different things that come to the board, and the board says we have capacity for 2, and those are the 2 that the board suggests. And then at the annual meeting, if the members say, you know, really, we like suggestion 4 because that's what I'm willing to work on, that's what, you know, 3 or 4 of us are willing to work on, or whatever, there's still an opportunity for the membership to have a voice. But I believe that this part of the process, the membership recommends to the board recommends to the membership, and then you have a discussion. I believe that's how that works.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you so much. That really helps.
So I have a question. Clarification actually. What I'm hearing is, let's say that we get 5 education suggestions, and it sounds like on the 20th, you're going to choose 3 of them to send to the board. Does that mean that the other 2 get shelved? Or does it mean that if you get 5, you're going to have 5 educational meetings in the 2021-22 timeframe if you have people who are willing to conduct those virtual meetings? Or are you going to limit the number of virtual meetings?
So I'm going to suggest, since there's some confusion about this, that the committee meet and send out the correct information to your question and other questions to the people who are on this call, so that we have clarity. Does that sound appropriate, rather than trying to work it out?
Well, I have something to say about that. I think that we're doing two different things when we have the 20th meeting. We're talking about programs for education and advocacy. The top three programs, the ones with the most people would like to see, those would be our priorities. So, and those would be ones that we might be also advocating about. There might be others that we don't make a priority, but we might have a forum about, an educational forum about. We may or may not advocate about those, but we're choosing three things to advocate and educate about on the 20th. That's the main focus of program.
And that's the process we just went through in determining which three?
For the state we did. Now we need to do it for our local league.
And how are we doing that?
On the 20th.
On the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is Judith. So the results of the February 20th meeting will then go to the board in its March meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have another timing question, I guess. Maybe I missed something along the way. The program planning that we're doing is for 21-22. So in the meantime, between now and September, when our 21 program kind of generally starts, how do we determine what kinds of programs and educational forums and et cetera that we'll be doing as our local league?
We need another committee to talk about that.
Well, yeah, it would be the people that submit proposals. They should have, hopefully, people that are interested in working on those proposals.
Right, but we also need some committee to schedule all kinds of both program related and other kinds of educational meetings for the coming year.
And we don't really need to wait till September. We could start.
No, we've typically done that, but we could have one in the summer,
Yeah.
We have different kinds of flexibility with virtual meetings.
Right.
But also, are we going to have, we did have three issues for this year too, and are we going to have any more meetings before June 30th, other than the annual meeting and choosing the local?
Nobody has scheduled anything.
I know. I'm just thinking that maybe we should think about that as a board.
Maybe the board does want to think about that. That would be separate from this process.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Deb has a question.
Could you remind us at some, not necessarily right away, but in an email somewhere, what our three areas of focus were for this year?
Let me just tell everybody right now. Hold on.
I think homelessness was one of them, and we're going to continue on with that. So we could have one this year and one next year too.
I'll tell you exactly what we approved at last year's annual meeting. The recommended program was voter service, including education about the Schools and Communities First initiative, climate change, healthcare issues, and housing issues.
Thank you.
Yes.
Deb, do you have a question? I think you're muted.
Well, we do have a couple of retired nurses here, and so we haven't had anything on healthcare. I would volunteer to maybe help organize, but I don't know anything about it, so I'm not sure who would get to have that. But I was just thinking that Jerry and Margot might have some suggestions.
Well, healthcare is always near and dear to my heart, and single payer, I think most of you know, is always near and dear to my heart. And there's a new effort in California to move it forward with that. However, climate change is weighing bigger on me, so I'm not sure I'm up for working on healthcare this time.
So there is a connection in San Joaquin County, especially in Stockton, between homelessness and healthcare and community medical, and the Stockton Police Department have initiated well over a year ago an outreach program into the community with cops on bicycles, who are a very interesting crew and who work closely with community medical in bringing the homeless into immediate care on the street, so to speak, for a variety of critical issues, and then getting them into housing and long-term care. And that would be something I think that would be worthwhile having a presentation on, because it hits on both sides. This is probably the neediest people in the community when it comes to healthcare, and it also hits on the homeless.
I like that idea.
It's very interesting, yeah.
Here's a question for you. Do you want to submit, using this form that we've asked for, do you want people to be able to submit recommendations that apply to this year as well as next year?
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
Right, yeah. Why not?
And you know, even
help.
Yeah, even though we have priorities for this year until the new year starts in July, doesn't mean we can't do things that are other subjects. It just means those were our priority issues. That doesn't mean we're limited to only presenting programs or forums about those issues.
Yeah, I think when we do the meeting on the 20th, we'll figure out how to separate choosing the issues for education advocacy from selecting educational meetings generally. We'll figure out how to do that when we have the meeting on the 20th.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to submit something on healthcare issues using that form, think about who would spearhead that and who would present, what the topic would be, and so on. We could consider that on the 20th.
I'd like to work with Jerry and Margot on putting something together that could include the single payer and other issues that are pending.
You bet.
With a little excitement from the bike cops.
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to mention too, a little bit separate from our planning, things to keep in mind though. Lots of organizations are doing Zoom calls, and sometimes their topic might coordinate with our issues. And I think collaborating a bit and getting the message to our members can be really, can be very helpful if running through the board or running through the committee or whatever, however it takes place. But there's so much going on and so many people talking about the same issues that it's pretty interesting right now.
Yeah, and we've done that before, and there's certainly no reason we couldn't do that again.
I think maybe if the board had some kind of a conduit when we receive that information to get it out to the membership, that would be really appropriate. And maybe a board member would volunteer to do that, to be that person, that contact person.
That would be good.
Open to suggestions. I was just on a Zoom call a couple of days ago of the county's Office of Children's Services, and it was the Children and Youth Task Force that comes out of the Board of Supervisors, and funds that are available under COVID to be able to address the immediate needs of families with young children. And it's very exciting stuff. It involves some interesting political and legal issues of transferring money from the sheriff's department to children and youth. And it was very poorly attended. There were probably 10 of us on the call. This kind of thing is important. Those meetings used to have 70, 80 people at them, and it's dwindled down that small because the proposition did not go through. So yeah, I think it's important to get that word out.
Yeah, I think outreach is really key. It's also different for most of us. I mean, we all had our pathways of how we reach different people and different entities, and it's a little bit different now.
Bev Bloom, do you still have a question?
No, thank you, Jerry.
Okay, just checking.
Okay, I think that brings us to closure on the meeting. Unless anybody else has anything else they would like to add, it seems like we have some homework to do to get back to you with some specific information, and the board has some work to do as well by way of making sure that everybody is on the same page and that we have complete clarity on where we're going. So I believe that Judith is taking minutes.
We told Judith she didn't need to take.
She told me I didn't need to.
But we recorded the meeting.
I have scribbles down here, but I haven't really taken minutes because.
Okay. Well, then I would request the committee put something together by way of a synopsis of what transpired today, and reminding us all of the links to the information that was put out there. The PowerPoint is on the website or Facebook or somewhere where it can be printed out, maybe?
It should go on the website. It probably isn't yet, but it will. And this whole thing has been recorded. There'll be a link on the website.
Fantastic. And I want to thank the committee for your work. I think this was an extremely productive meeting. I feel as though some of us are in unknown territory, but that's okay. Everything has to start someplace. And I feel as though we're really making good progress. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.